Picture this. You're sitting on the beach, and off in the distance, bobbing up and down between the waves, you see a woman and she's waving. She looks kind of familiar, so you wave back. But it's getting windy, so you take down your umbrella and you start to fold up your chair. And then suddenly a lifeguard pushes past you and dives into the pounding waves. Just like the last line of a poem by Stevie Smith that has haunted me since junior school English class. She was not waving, but drowning. We live in a sea of busyness, and on the outside, we look like we're handling it. But on the inside, often we're gasping for air. And in today's episode of Weekly Momentum, we're going to address busyness and talk truthfully about why you can't do everything, why that's okay, and why that is actually the key to your time freedom. We're going to ask and answer the question, are you waving or drowning? Welcome to Weekly Momentum. This is the podcast that helps you do great work and still finish before 5. If you want to start your week with clarity, confidence, and a whole lot less chaos, you're in the right place. I'm the Get It Done Diva, and I'm here to help busy professionals just like you do great work without playing catch up every weekend, only to feel behind again by Tuesday. This show is your roadmap to change. Now, if busyness keeps hijacking your week, this episode will help you find the exact words for those tough moments. I'll walk you through choosing the one thing to make a priority when everything feels urgent. And we'll also explore how to set tiny next steps and begin to create more space in your weekly schedule. So join me in this episode of Weekly Momentum. You know how sometimes you pass someone in the hallway and you ask them, how are you doing? And they just keep on walking and they say, yeah, I'm good. And there's a big wave. If you look closely, you'd be able to see the exhaustion in their eyes. That's what busyness does to us. It looks like waving. It feels like drowning. And in this episode, I'm going to help you stop thinking that you have to do it all and help you break free of the addiction to busyness so that you can continue to do great work, but without sacrificing your nights and weekends. Because busyness isn't the badge of honor that it pretends to be. It's the biggest thief of your greatness. Today, we're focusing on a socially accepted and even revered addiction, busyness. And here's the thing. Busy professionals, people like you who care deeply about the work that you do, are some of the best at hiding it. You do great work. You deliver for your clients, your teams, your family. But at what cost? We've been taught that being busy equals valuable. Busyness and business, they don't just sound almost the same. If you're not careful, they can look the same, but they don't produce the same results. We've been conditioned to wear busyness almost like a badge of honor, checking email early in the morning and late at night, rushing through meals, pushing ourselves to get one more thing done before bed. Busyness has become an addiction. And the withdrawal symptoms? Guilt when you stop doing, anxiety when you hit pause, shame when you can't keep up. And it's all around us, hidden in plain sight. I know this addiction well because I lived it for years. I believe that if I just worked harder, if I stayed later, if I pushed through weekends, I'd finally get to the light at the end of the tunnel. But instead of getting ahead, I just crashed. I burned out so badly, I spent nearly 6 months in bed, too exhausted to function with my daughter, a toddler at the time, running around, while doctors ran test after test trying to pinpoint which autoimmune disease was the trigger. The truth was that it wasn't my body that was broken. It was my operating system. I'd overstressed my system with being busy. And when I realized that, I made a promise to myself. I would never again break myself in the name of busyness by doing. That was over 15 years ago. Now, I see the same story playing out often in the professionals I coach. That's why they come to me. Brilliant people with big ideas and great hearts doing great work, but constantly feeling like they're drowning in doing. They sit down with their endless to-do lists and know in their gut that they're drowning in busyness. And here's what makes it worse. The labels that we use to normalize the feelings and behavior instead of seeing them as warning signs, pointing us towards change. Labels like the ones we talked about in last week's episode, I'm a procrastinator, or I'm such a perfectionist, I get easily distracted. We wear these labels as if they're fixed parts of our identity. Saying I'm busy is yet another label that is holding us back, a cover story that normalizes our behavior and keeps us locked into this exhausting cycle of busyness and burnout. And somewhere along the way, busy became a legitimate reason not to do something. Somewhere along the way, it became okay to say, I can't make your birthday party, go to the gym this morning, or get to bed before midnight because I'm too busy. And then everyone, including ourselves, began to accept that without question, even to admire it and feel less than if they're not busy. It became the new normal, speeding up, doing, like the roundabout at the playground, but it makes it very difficult for us to jump off when it's moving so quickly. Even when you do feel like you have time, have you ever noticed how busyness just shows up and fills the vacuum? I know you've experienced it. When you finally get a free afternoon, only to instantly pack it with errands, emails, or someone else's priorities. When we buy into this illusion of busyness, it's easy for us to believe we don't have enough time, which then snowballs and makes us feel this time scarcity instead of time freedom. No wonder we rebel. We feel paralyzed because we have space, but we don't know how to use it. That's not laziness. That's busyness withdrawal. No wonder we invented procrastination. We need a break from the busyness. So we created procrastination to give ourselves permission to do nothing. Today, I want you to begin to break free from that cycle. I want you to call out busyness for what it is, an illusion, an addiction, and an excuse, because you can't do everything. And that's okay. You're not supposed to. Time freedom or space in your schedule, that's your escape hatch. It's what lets you stop living in the pendulum swing between busyness and burnout. It's what's going to let you focus like a laser beam on the projects that matter most, the ones that will actually change your life and your work. So if you've been feeling like you're not waving but drowning, today, let's help you swim. Let's look at how to step out of busyness, release all of those false labels, and start creating that breathing space that lets you do great work without drowning yourself in the process. Let's look at how we got here and how we can change it. Our motives for being busy usually start out with the best intentions. We want to support our families or grow our business. We want to keep up with the increased demand for what we offer. We want to help people. We want to be successful. We want to do great work. So let's start there. Let's start by talking about our drive and motivation behind doing great work or greatness. Just for a minute. That way we can understand how busyness lures us into its addiction. Let me start by describing what great work means to me, how I see it and feel it, so we're all on the same page. You know that feeling when you're in the flow of just getting stuff done, when you move from task to task and it's effortless, like a perfectly rehearsed dance. Each step is easy, you feel in the zone, and you're laser focused. You're unstoppable. Even if you haven't finished the project yet, you already feel like you're making progress. You have a sense of accomplishment. You feel proud, and you're confident you'll hit the finish line. That's your zone of greatness. Notice it's more about how you feel than what you do. It's flow. It's blissful. It's our innate nature, and it is always available to us. But here's the catch. You can't reach it from a place of busyness, no matter how hard you try, because busyness is about doing more and greatness is about being more. Busyness is about the hustle, rushing, pushing, forcing, proving. Greatness comes from a place of spaciousness. Here's the exciting part. When you create even a little bit of space, You break free from the addiction of busyness. Your greatness just naturally rises to the surface. You don't have to squeeze it out of yourself. You don't have to white knuckle it and push through. You just have to stop drowning just long enough to begin to learn how to swim. Greatness is a habit, not a hustle. And you know what? The opposite of busyness is space. So the more space you can create, the more you can unhook yourself from the addiction to busyness. And today, as we move through the weekly momentum flow and step into a new week, I'm going to give you some really simple ideas to help you to shift both your mind and your actions out of the addiction of busyness and into the spaciousness of greatness. So let's get started with this week's weekly momentum flow. After last week's episode, I had a lot of people reaching out and asking me more about the weekly momentum process. So I'd like to take a moment right now to just give you a quick overview of what to expect and how to get the most out of this process each week. Think of weekly momentum as your reset moment. It's your chance to pause and really set the tone for the week ahead before you're already in it. This simple 4-step weekly flow gives you breathing room, reduces your stress, and creates a calmer, more intentional week. It's so much more than planning. It's a moment to look inward and connect with yourself, to celebrate and learn from the last week, and then to step powerfully into the new one. Every week is a new opportunity to upgrade, to create change and to shift from busyness, burnout, and overwhelm to time freedom. So each time that you repeat the weekly momentum flow, you solidify a habit that creates structure, clarity, and momentum for weeks ahead. If you're like most busy professionals I know, you're frustrated. What you're doing right now, it's not working, and it feels like you're in a time famine. There's never enough hours for you to give the 150% you know you're capable of. You catch yourself thinking, if I just had more time. Weekly momentum, it's going to give you the breathing room you need to make the shift to time freedom. Every episode of Weekly Momentum, it's going to follow the same format. It's a 4-step flow, and I've been sharing it with my members and my clients to help them focus better and get more done every week for over 20 years. Step 1, rewind. You're going to celebrate wins, note what worked, what didn't, and why, and carve out some new neural pathways with do-overs. Step 2, realign. Reconnect to what it is that you want and remind yourself of the bigger picture so that this week your priorities lead, not pressure or other people's agendas. And this step helps you get off the hamster wheel of busyness. And it also helps you focus on what matters most this week. Step 3, plan. This step is where you formally say what you want. Instead of adding to this never-ending to-do list each week or keeping everything in your head, you're going to make clear agreements with yourself by setting a weekly goal and prioritizing and creating a weekly top 10. Step 4, plug in. This is where you get your head in the game. You're going to update your calendar to reflect what matters most. This gives you an opportunity to create the space you need to do great work. And it allows you to honor the agreements you made in step 3 of the flow so that this week you can do what you say. Now, each week I'll introduce a new tool or theme to support your weekly momentum flow. And you can also learn more about the tools that I share on my Get It Done Diva YouTube channel. Now, listening to this podcast each week will help you to build your own weekly momentum habit. But writing really locks it in. When you write things down, you're 40% more likely to follow through. That's huge. So if you want 40% more results, when you tune into Weekly Momentum, grab your favorite journal, Google Doc, or a notebook as you listen. And if you're already using one of my Momentum 90-day planners, you're all set. The full flow is inside. And if you want to purchase a planner, you can head over to getitdonediva.com and click on the Books and Planners tab. Oh, just one last thing before we get started. If you don't have a momentum planner, and you want to use the same pages, you can grab the Finish Before 5 weekly planning pages for busy professionals. Your free download of these pages includes fillable templates, short step-by-step videos to guide you through so that you can plan your week with me. You're going to find the direct link to the pages in the show notes, or you can head over to my website, getitdonediva.com, where you'll find them on the homepage. So let's get started with step 1 of the weekly momentum flow. Step 1, rewind. This, remember, is where we celebrate wins, note what worked, what didn't, and why, and upgrade your operating system with do-overs. And in this step, you're going to speed up your growth cycle so that you're upgrading your operating system every single week. And this helps you honor your agreements and stay consistent from week to week. In the Finish Before 5 weekly planning pages, you will find 7 questions to help you gather data from last week. I also want you to think about, did you use the words "I'm busy" last week in any format? You might have a different way of saying "I'm busy" without actually using those exact words. Only you know that. What did "I'm busy" help you avoid last week? What are you getting out of busyness addiction? We're always getting something from it. And was there any place in your week last week where you felt like you didn't have enough space or time? Also, was there any time last week where you felt you had time freedom? How did you create that for yourself? And what were you able to achieve because of it? Now, I've got you thinking about busyness in terms of last week. Let's look at a simple strategy to help you to level up and unhook from busyness this week. Write down 3 moments from last week where busyness pulled you off what you really wanted to do. What was the trigger? Was it a particular request, a question, a person, a place, or a circumstance? Now, once you've got that clear, let's come up with a do-over. Let's rewire your brain around that trigger. So next time that trigger shows up, what are you going to say? What is that little script? Busyness is like any other addiction. It lures you in. And so it's critical that you come up with a game plan to handle the triggers, the difficult situations before you're in them, or at least learn from them when they've showed up in the past. I learned how powerful having the right words to say are after I quit drinking. For decades, I had been an alcoholic. At 5 o'clock every day, I would sit down, open up my bottle of red wine, and drink a 2-liter bottle until I blanked out. I was a high-functioning alcoholic, and the next morning, I would get up and do it all again. And then 15 years ago, I quit, and one of my first challenges seems silly, but it was, what do I say? I didn't want to set myself up for failure like I had in the past. I wasn't ready to say I quit. It didn't feel truthful yet. And I was talking this through with my husband, and he helped me find the perfect words to say. First, what we did is we made a list of the questions that I was afraid of being asked, the triggers, like, what do you want to drink? Or, what, you don't want to drink? Did you quit? How long are you quitting for? Is this for good? After we made the list and we figured out one answer that felt good for all of the questions and that I felt comfortable saying, this is really working for me right now. That's what we came up with. Honestly, I don't even remember saying it aloud to anyone, but knowing how to respond and that I could simply say, this is really working for me right now, was all I needed to make that shift, to swim to shore and avoid being dragged back into my addiction. If you can identify the triggers that pull you into your addiction to busyness, you can catch it early on and set clear boundaries. And you can use that do-over question to come up with a game plan to handle these triggers that just keep dragging you back into busyness. So just a reminder of the exercise I shared with you just a minute ago. And the goal of it is to rewire your brain with a do-over. Come up with your list of triggers of when you say I'm busy or you get sucked into this, and then create your answer to those triggers before they arise so that you have it in your back pocket as you step into the next week. You've just given yourself an upgrade. Now we're going to flow into step 2. Step 2, this is where we realign. We take a moment to look at the bigger picture, reconnect with what you want, and remind yourself of your annual and what I love on 90-day goals. So this week, your priorities lead, not the pressure of other people's agenda. And in the Finish by 5 weekly planning pages, there's a page to help you that will help you check in with your 90-day plans and set your next action steps. I'll help you with those in a minute too. This is going to help you also come up with your weekly top 10. So step 2 is where we reconnect with your bigger goals. We pull the camera back for that wider shot. Take a moment to think about your vision, your passion, and your bigger goals and projects. Goals, they're really just how you say what you want. And your 90-day plan is a roadmap. As you think about your bigger goals, I want you to ask yourself, what are my next action steps? These are ridiculously small steps you could take to move forward. And I was first introduced to the idea of the next action step in the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. Allen's created a whole system for getting things done, but I especially like his concept of the next action step. It's brilliant and powerful. After we set big goals, we might find ourselves spending days, weeks, or even months just spinning our wheels because we don't know what to do first. We think we're ready, and maybe we're all pumped up and energized from setting the goals, we're excited, and yet we're not moving forward. We don't start, and instead we just start doing other stuff, anything, but often for other people. We get swept up in busyness. But we can avoid this by thinking small, really small, and simply defining a next action step. We don't always have to have a detailed step-by-step plan to achieve a goal. Sometimes we could just start with the next action step and just see where it takes us next. We don't need to overthink things. Now, I want you to keep in mind that when you set a next action step, you don't have to take it right then. You don't have to take it this week. But when you know what it is, you might find yourself doing it without even thinking about it. This step of the flow helps you completely avoid busyness, cut it off in the past, and focus on what matters most this week. It helps you to tune in so that you know exactly what you want and you remind yourself of that. Because when you do, you unleash a whole new level of momentum. And that's when you are unstoppable. So to realign this week, plug back into those bigger goals and set a small, tiny next action step for each one of those goals that you have. These are goals not for the week. We're talking about the bigger goals, the 90-day, the annual goals, the bigger projects. Just sit down and write down what is the next thing that I would tell someone else to do if I were having an assistant take care of the next step. Make it super small, like 2-3 minutes or less, and ridiculously easy. It's going to feel silly to even write it down. Maybe it's turn on the computer or find a certain document or set up an appointment with an expert that's going to help you with that part of the process. Whatever it is, just write down the next action step for all of the big things that you have that you're moving towards and realign with the vision of where you're going. Next up, step 3. All right, it's time for step 3, plan. This is where you formally say, this is what I want this week. Instead of writing a never-ending to-do list or keeping everything in your head, in this step, you make clear, written agreements with yourself by setting a weekly goal, or one thing, and you use your weekly top 10 as a simple way to prioritize. Remember what I said earlier? When we write something down, we are 40% more likely to take action on it. Now, this step is going to set you up for success. First, though, I want to shout out to the listeners. I want to take a moment to thank all of you who reached out to me. After last week's episode, I had a flurry of texts and emails from so many of you letting me know that you loved being able to plan your week with me. I loved it too. I also wanted to shout out to Jennifer from Norton Home Office Management. She sent in a question that I want to answer right now because it's perfect for where we're at. This question really addresses busyness at its core, and I think it's going to help a lot of you that are listening as well. So Jennifer asked, my question every week I plan is always the same. So much to do, how do I determine the one thing? Now, Jennifer is a Momentum Squad Inner Circle member, and what she's referring to is the one thing or the one weekly goal in this weekly momentum process. And it's tough. When you're working in your business, you've got personal responsibilities, you've got all of those great ideas, and then all of those things you feel like you have to do. How can you possibly pick one thing, right? The idea of having a one thing originally came from the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And the main premise behind it is the question in the book, which is, what is the one thing I can do that doing such, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Now, when you set one weekly goal, don't forget you can still have a weekly top 10 for to-dos or not to-dos, so don't worry. But your one weekly goal is the focus or theme for the week. It might be a milestone you want to hit. I want to just mention something that a lot of people miss. Your one weekly goal, it doesn't need to be the thing you spend the most time on this week. You can have a weekly goal that takes 5 minutes if you want. I just want to mention that. Now, back to Jennifer's question, how do you pick your one thing? Well, first off, I like to rephrase the one thing question and instead ask, what's the one thing I can focus on this week that will move me forward the most? Now, I get a lot of pushback. Why one thing? Why just pick one thing? But when we pick multiple things, then we're really picking nothing. I mean, we could try to convince ourselves that we can do it all, but we can't. Your one thing is about progress. When you're drowning, it's hard to learn how to swim, but you can grab onto something to stay afloat. That's making progress. If you make your weekly one thing something that moves you forward towards your bigger goals, then you're building a road to change. When you focus on one thing, it gives you a feeling of making progress and you feel like you're creating a better future. That feels good and energizes you to focus more on your future, which helps you to stop drowning and start waving. A vision-driven, goal-centric weekly one thing feels like swimming, moving forward, rather than setting a one thing that's about just doing stuff you're already doing or getting caught up, like invoicing, doing your taxes, or meeting with a new client. Yes, you need to do these things, but what are you doing to move yourself forward? I see so many frustrated professionals. They're just stuck treading water, but refusing to learn how to swim. Now and again, you may need to set your one weekly goal as something that you've just been putting off, a big frog, like taxes. So you prioritize it and you just get it done. But you'll move yourself forward faster, hit your goals, and create time freedom quicker if you set your one weekly goal around something that's moving you forward. If you decide to learn how to swim instead of treading water. Your one weekly goal is also a great way to avoid busyness because it allows you to get clear on what's important. There's no more, what shall I do now? Your answer's preset. It helps you beat distraction, especially from other people, and empowers you to say no. With a declared one thing, it's easy to say, not this week because my priority is X. And it builds your confidence, gives you like a defined finish line that makes you feel like you have a win. And when you can measure your progress, you reduce the guilt, the shame, and the fear, which are all withdrawal symptoms of an addiction to busyness. So, Jennifer, I'd suggest looking at your 90-day plan each week. I know you have one because you're a member of the Inner Circle, and picking one thing that will give you a feeling of making progress, big or small. Remember, it doesn't matter if it takes 2 minutes or 2 days, and make that your one weekly goal each week. And if you're still struggling, then make your one weekly goal something to address how busy you are, something that helps you learn how to swim and begins to create more space in your schedule. Thanks, Jennifer. That was a great question. And if you have a question, you can send it over to momentum@momentumsquad.com. I'd be happy to answer your questions on the air too. As we round out step 3 this week, I want to be crystal clear. Saying what you want, creating a plan for the week, same thing, doesn't have to be complicated. A plan is a short, written, or typed agreement with yourself. The purpose of having a plan is to help you to focus. It aims your attention at what matters. It helps you to make progress and move forward towards the things that are important. It helps you set boundaries so that you can be very clear on what you're doing and what you're not. Creates calm, eliminates decision fatigue and overwhelm. It gives you time freedom so that you can take back your weekends and finish by 5. Having a plan, a simple plan, allows you to live in integrity because you know that you are doing what you say. And your plan can be as simple as just writing down your one weekly goal. All right, step 4, it's time to plug in. This step is where you get your head in the game. And to do that, you're going to update your calendar so that it reflects what matters most for you this week. This is going to give you an opportunity to create the space that you need to do great work and to honor the commitments and the agreements that you made in the last step. So this week, you can do what you say. Look at your calendar. How much busyness is already scheduled in your week ahead? What's already locked in? Can you do anything to make some more space, just a little bit? When will you spend time on your one weekly goal? Block it off now. Often it feels hard to change the week that you're going into, so you might want to look a few weeks further ahead if you're serious about creating more space and you feel like you're caught up in the busyness addiction. How can you get off the conveyor belt of busyness? Maybe if you do this, you'll see more clearly a change that you have to make that progress that will become this week's one weekly goal. When you claim the space in your schedule, you stop drowning and you start swimming. In this episode, I shared a lot of great tools to help you escape from the busyness burnout cycle. There was the do-over script to help you respond differently to those triggers that pull you into busyness. We looked at next action steps, those little micro actions that you can take so that busyness doesn't have a chance to hijack your time. We looked at your one weekly goal, thanks to Jennifer, to help you make progress every week. And we looked at how to get ahead of busyness and block off the space on your calendar for what matters most. Even looking several weeks ahead to open up space in the future so that you can begin to finish before 5 and take back your weekends. Busyness is an addiction. You can't do everything, and that's okay. And admitting it is the first step to change. When you choose to stop the cycle and show other people around you how you value your time and their time, you lead the way to change for everyone. When you say the words, "I'm too busy," or "I'm so busy," just notice it. Don't get down on yourself. It's an addiction. It's a habit. It's going to take a while to create a change. But here's what's fascinating to me is that in order to escape the addiction of busyness or create change in our lives at all, the best thing we can do is just ask a question. Change happens more with flow than force. And so just by asking a question, instead of chastising yourself when you catch yourself saying, "I'm busy," maybe what you could do is say, "What do I really mean? What am I really saying?" And you just get curious and notice what's really hiding underneath the busyness addiction. As you do that, you'll begin to create change and you'll begin to be able to show other people how to respect and honor their time too. You can grab those Finish Before 5 weekly planning pages for busy professionals on the website if you want to plan your next week with me. You're going to find the direct link to that in the show notes, or you can just head over to my website at getitdonediva.com. Busyness is an addiction that can be stopped in its tracks when you admit you can't do everything and that that's okay. When you create the space to be great, you stop drowning in busyness and you start swimming in momentum. You can still do great work and finish before 5. You can open up the space on your calendar. You can say no to the addiction and the triggers of busyness. You can keep your evenings free for doing absolutely nothing if you want. And you can spend more time working on your future instead of drowning in the now. Thanks for listening. I'll see you every Sunday in Weekly Momentum to plan your week with you.